Welcome to The Explainer. You know that feeling when a perfectly normal day just blows up in your face? Today, we're exploring how we react, what we do when things suddenly go wrong.
So let's really get into this by looking at two completely different stories of confrontation. One is set in the complex, rule-bound world of adults, and the other, it's in the raw, unfiltered world of the schoolyard.
Okay, so our first story kicks off with a guy named Alex, and he's basically trying to figure out the unwritten rules in a brand new country.
You gotta picture this. It's the 1990s. Alex has just traded the sunny beaches of San Diego for a small town in Switzerland. I mean, talk about a culture shock, right? He's learning German, he's just trying to find his footing. And a super simple, everyday thing is about to turn into a huge deal.
And it all came down to this tiny, unspoken difference. See, back in San Diego, you just drop your money into a machine. Simple. But here, in this Swiss town, nope, you hand it directly to the driver. How is he supposed to know that?
So, Alex gets on this bus, coins ready, and he goes to do the thing he's always done. Put the money in the machine himself. And boom. That's the exact moment his whole day just goes sideways.
The driver just loses it. He starts screaming at him in German, a language Alex is barely getting a handle on. So you can imagine he's confused, totally blindsided, and now he's being publicly shamed, kicked off the bus in front of everybody.
So in this moment of pure frustration, Alex just grabs a handful of coins, about 15 francs, and chucks them at the driver before storming off. But you know how it is. As he's walking home, that hot anger starts to cool down, and it's replaced by this awful, heavy feeling of being totally defeated.
So later that day, he's feeling just awful, and there's a knock at the door. It's his neighbor, and she's crying. This single moment changes absolutely everything.
And here's where it gets really interesting. His neighbor gives him a completely different lens for what happened. For Alex, it was just this horrible, embarrassing mix-up. But for her, an eyewitness, she saw it as something much uglier. She said, "I saw the whole thing. This guy was a racist."
You know, Alex is ready to just bury the whole thing. It was humiliating. But his new allies, his wife and this neighbor, they are not having it. They're like, no way. They know there are systems in place for this kind of thing, and they insist on taking action.
And you know what? It actually worked. 2 weeks go by, and he gets a formal letter of apology from the town's mayor. So justice wasn't won by shouting back or getting into a fight. It came from other people, from allies who knew how to push the right buttons in the system.
That's an amazing story of community and accountability, right? But what if there are no allies? What if there is no system to appeal to? Well, that takes us to our second story, and a completely different battlefield, the schoolyard.
All right, so story number 2 takes us back to childhood. The narrator is about 12 years old, and he's on a collision course with the one kid in school that everybody, and I mean everybody, is terrified of, the classic school bully.
So one day, just like that, the bully decides to make him a target. He walks right up to our narrator and just rips the pocket clean off his shirt. A total power move, a direct physical challenge right there in front of everyone.
But here's the twist. He doesn't flip out. He doesn't run away. Instead, something cold and clear clicks inside his head. He just thinks to himself, okay, I'll catch you when it's my turn. It's a promise, really.
And his plan was beautiful in its simplicity. He just waits, he watches. He sees the bully standing by a muddy ditch, creeps up, and shove. The bully goes right in, and when this enraged, muddy kid comes charging at him, he just sidesteps, and the bully goes flying right back into the muck. Perfect.
Oh, but it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The bully is humiliated, so now it has to become a public spectacle. Another kid arranges a formal fight for the next day on the football court. It's the talk of the school, like the main event.
And the fight has a clear, decisive ending. Our narrator gets the upper hand, drags the bully right back to that same muddy ditch, and dunks his head in. It's symbolic. It's final. The message was received. He was never, ever bothered again. Resolution was achieved by him and him alone.
Okay, so you've got these two intense stories, right? And they end in completely different ways. Let's stack them up against each other and see what they're really telling us about conflict.
Yeah,
When you lay it all out like this, the contrast is just, wow. Alex is in the adult world. The conflict is nuanced. It's about culture, maybe racism. The solution? It's external. It comes from allies who use the system. Meanwhile, our narrator is in the raw, primal world of the schoolyard. The conflict is about physical dominance, pure and simple. And the solution? It's all internal. It comes from his own courage and his own two hands.
So, what's the big lesson here? What do these two powerful and really different experiences teach us about facing down a conflict?
Well, I think it shows that there is no one-size-fits-all strategy for confrontation. The rules of the game change completely depending on your environment. In our complex adult world, sometimes allies and institutions are your best or only path to justice. But in those more primal situations, self-reliance might be all you've got. The big takeaway from both is that you have to understand the context, the rules of the jungle you're in, to figure out how to navigate it.
And that leaves us with a really important question to think about. When conflict inevitably finds you, what's your first instinct? Who are you going to count on? Your allies in the system or yourself? Because as these stories make crystal clear, the right answer isn't always so simple.